I think the key to anything as it relates to technology is, as we always talk about and think about, is to not necessarily replace humans, but find a better use for humans. There are unique opportunities when you introduce humans and human perspective into a very mechanized process. Hopefully, through the technology and the mechanization, it will create more jobs and different kinds of jobs and better paying jobs with higher levels of education and so forth, and that we're not regressing, but rather we're progressing.
You're watching Marketing Misfits with Norm Farrar and Kevin Kari.
We're back.
You ready?
I'm ready. This is the start. We're back.
We're back.
Yes.
I have a question, Norm. Is the snow in your backyard the same color as your beard, or is your beard a little bit more of a grayish color than the snow, or does the snow stay white up there in the Great White North?
You know how many times I've been asked that question? What snow? You know, it's warm enough that I saw my balcony reduce from around 4 feet of snow. Okay, that's already melted, down to around, well, put it this way, Dallas has got to find a little snow patch. He only lies in snow. So so it's gone. Thank God it's gone.
You need one of these new things that our friend Melissa, she's from Toronto area too. Melissa Bong, she's been on the podcast, one of the previous episodes. Really brilliant really cool girl. But she was at Market Masters with us, and she made a little video about Market Masters. She posted on social media that was pretty awesome. But she messaged me after Market Masters, said, Kevin, can I just get your address? I want to send you a gift. I don't know if she did the same for you. If not, I got you taken care of. But she sent me a little gift, and you know how boxes show up at my house sometimes. Logistics works that way. Things just show up, and you don't know how they get there, but they just show up. And like cigars, sometimes, like you and your cigars, or you're like,
I know that. I know what happens to my cigars.
This happened with Norm. Norm ordered some cigars and sent them to my house, and he came to visit. He's like, hey, did my cigars show up? I was like, tell Norm, no, I haven't seen any cigars show up. And it turns out he had ordered them like a month or something, or a month or two beforehand, and so they would be sitting here. Some random box just showed up. Cigars. I was like, oh, cool. I put them in my humidor, and Norm comes, and he's like, where are my cigars? Like, nothing showed up. You might want to track them. So he tracks them and shows like, yeah, they're delivered, Kevin, like 2 months ago. I'm like, oh, maybe that's the box that's over here.
No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. It was, all right, maybe it's my mistake. I don't know. I thought I ordered some cigars. And then it was, let's go have a cigar. Well, Norm, pick one. Okay, when I go into the humidors, and I go, Kev, I was telling you about these Gurkha cigars. When did you start smoking these? He goes, I don't know. I go, these are the ones I ordered. And then I look over the other side, there's a case of the other ones. So, yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, and then you end up giving one to me. So you shared. So
that's the way you work.
That one box is for me. So I get this other package that comes up with stuff. I'm like, what the heck is this? I open it up, and there's 3 in there. So that's why I got you covered. I got you one for you. And they're lightsabers that will work good in the snow, but they're like these lightsabers, like the size of a flashlight. And you put butane in them, and they like shoot up like a huge, like, I don't know, like a Star Wars lightsaber. Picture one of those things, like Luke Skywalker used, and he waved around at Darth Vader. But they can also be used to light cigars. And so
it's a different way of crossing swords.
That's right. It's a different way. So we'll cross swords.
Perfect.
But Melissa Vaughn sent these to me. So thanks, Melissa, for sending those. And I didn't know where they came from. And she messaged me. She's like, did you get the package I sent? I was like, I'm not sure. She's like, oh, it's these laser lighter things. I'm like, yeah, those are really cool. So I just had to order. It's a special I can never say butane or whatever it is, because it has a special lid on the top to fill them. So it just came today. So I'm going to be playing with that, and I'll let you know how that goes, Norm.
I just got to say this. I know we're spending a lot of time on things that show up and you don't know who it came from. Remember when you got that $400 shirt? And like, I like wearing Robert Graham shirts. I like, it's a brand I like. And you get this Robert Graham shirt and you're going, I said, well, oh, that looks pretty cool. When did you get that? I didn't know you wore Robert Graham shirts. And he goes, I just got it.
Well, people send me, I get, because we're known in the Amazon space, I got a treadmill, like a little walking treadmill. I get people send me stuff, and that shirt, I'm wearing a lot more Robert Graham now because that shirt is really cool.
Comfortable, right?
It's comfortable.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Talk about brands.
Yeah, talk about brand. I mean, they're expensive. That's just like a $400 shirt or something. And for me, since I'm a big guy, you got double that because they got
that's $800 shirt.
$800 shirt. So it's like a tent. But it turns out, as my buddy Manny, his wife Marianne, had sent that as a gift. She had sent Mark some whiskey or something, and I was all sad. I didn't get any whiskey as a thank you for this thing, but she had sent me a shirt. So no, it's all cool.
So, buddy, how are you going to segue this?
So I mean, it's logistics. Back when I was in the 1980s, I had a catalog company, and we used to ship DHL all the time. And back then I could ship overnight DHL for like $3.75 a package because we were doing it in bulk, and we were shipping all these it's like a sharper image for college students catalog that I had. And I was always fascinated with how the whole logistics works. And I studied FedEx back then and DHL, and like how this hub and spoke system and how it's always fascinated me. And our guest today that's what they do. I mean, that's one of the things they do. They do a lot of things, as you know, Norm, but they're masters at logistics. And a lot of us just take for granted these shirts or these lasers or these cigars just showing up. But there's a whole behind the scenes that's happening from the packaging, like you said, the nice packaging of the cigars to all the way through that has to happen to get to that end result that most people have no realization of how complicated and complex that can be, and how much that's where a lot of the margin is not in the selling. It's in the logistics. And I always say the money's made in sourcing, not in selling.
Right.
And our guest today, you know him. It's my first time to meet him, but you say he's like the world master. He's like a master Jedi.
You know what I like? We talk about this all the time. Yeah, you have to bring up the laser. Well, there we go. Kareem can have one. There we go. Yeah. So what I love about Kareem when we get down to introducing him formally is the quality and perception of what he does. So the company's called the Atlas Network, and he's been the president and CEO of that, the Atlas Network LLC. If you want to check that out, don't go to the Atlas Network, but go to theatlasnetwork.com. Check out the product.
It's .org. It's not the .org one. It's the .com one.
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty impressive taking a look at the products. And there's a wide variety. You can see in the Bev merch, or you can take a look at luxury products, but they've got one thing in common, and that's perception. So I want to, talk about that, but I want to introduce Kareem. There's so much to say about him. It will take a book, like it is a novel, but I'm just going to cut to the chase and read off only the first chapter. So Kareem, he started, and he's the president and CEO of the Atlas Network. It's a global supply chain enterprise offering comprehensive end-to-end services. He does consulting, product development, factory selection, mass production, quality control, anything that you need, logistics, and shipping and storage. He also is an author. I found this out on the Lunch with Norm podcast. He has a really cool book called The Supply Chain Ups and Downs. And he's also the founder of a YouTube channel called Supply and Demand Show. So check that out. But, okay, so I got to skip like 3 or 4 chapters. Now, he's got a BA in finance and international business and marketing from Washington University in Minnesota. He's got an MBA in business law and finance from American University. And this one caught my eye. Artificial and intelligence in business strategy certification from MIT. So I can't wait to talk to him about that. But today, I'm going to bring him on right now. Here he is. And it's Kareem Kari.
Hey, guys.
How are you, sir?
Got to bring my lightsaber.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
Give me the sound effects too.
There you go.
That'll be the whole next category on your site, right? Star Wars or Space Invaders.
Lightsabers. We're doing it all, including lightsabers these days, I guess.
It's great that you could come on. And I mean, we talk about it so much. Is just you can get the money, you can pull out these margins. Like Kevin just said, the profit is really found in the logistics, the sourcing. And so many people we hear right now are grumbling about margins on Amazon or through Shopify, their D2C brand.
Tariffs and everything else.
Yeah, tariffs. Let's talk about that. Do you have to be worried right now about tariffs?
It really depends. I mean, this really depends. And I say that because of the fact that it can be very industry specific. First and foremost, where you source in the world will obviously impact whether you have these tariffs or not. And we know that this is not the first time in history that economic sanctions have been used between the United States and other nations to curb behavior or even to generate revenue. Quite honestly, it was one of the primary sources of federal revenue before the 1930s in the U.S. and helped to, fund a lot of development and projects in the United States. Obviously, we opened it up to globalization after the 30s and kind of became, more of the free market era. And that ushered in an entire realm of global opportunity. For us today and for most businesses, there will be impacts because let's just take, for example, Amazon. The second largest company in the United States. 70% of the products that are bought and sold on there come from China. So with that in mind, I mean, that's a $630 billion a year company where 70% of the products are coming from a nation that's now being tariffed up to 50, 60, 70%. And so what are we going to do with all this excess cost? Well, there are choices to be made. And businesses will have to either have firm discussions and negotiations with their suppliers where they either absorb some of these costs or the costs are shared between them. Because if you can't pass those costs off to the consumer because it's a very narrow margin business, then your choices are to either eat it yourself or to go out of business, or build a new supply chain entirely. There's some other areas where you can look at things like the HS codes and are they being properly classified and the declared values, because in the end of the day, you're really tariffed on the declared values. But there may be some industries like the luxury goods space where you may decide to absorb it because maybe you make 200% margins and you'll eat 10 or 20% of profitability to keep your customers happy. Or maybe you'll end up passing it off to your customers because they're not really price sensitive to begin with. They're willing to pay, $1,000 for a shirt. So $1,020 for a shirt won't really break the bank for people like that. So there, again, it's industry by industry, product by product, and it really will be dependent upon who's going to navigate the tariff. The supplier side, the business side, the consumers who end up, maybe having it be passed along to them. I mean, we look at things like the Super Bowl and we say, all right, well, next year, that guacamole is going to be 10 times more expensive because those avocados are coming from Mexico. Or we look at, just these different areas where it impacts our lives in the agricultural products, in the electronic side. We know that areas such as automotive can be dramatically impacted by some of these changes. Are there opportunities because of it? There could be some opportunities too regarding development within our own nation. But, that requires infrastructure and may require, time and resources and technology that we may not even have in place right now. So tariffs are going to definitely have an impact. And we're just going to have to see how far and how wide reaching. And that will, again, be industry to industry, product to product, where you really see the ebb and the flow of that.
When you look at that, Walmart just recently went to their suppliers and said, hey, you got to help us out here. We need a 10% reduction.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chinese government got involved and said, no, they called Bravo Sierra on that and said, no, you're not. We're not going to give you a 10% reduction. Walmart was like, their big offices are in Shenzhen trying to go back and forth. And so that didn't work for one of the biggest brands in the world where price is very sensitive for most of their customers.
Walmart is the largest company in the United States, followed by Amazon, like we said before. And, I think we talked about this before, you and I, Norm, but, where it really hits home is where you have this concept of disproportionate leverage, right? So like you just said, Walmart says, hey, we're the biggest company in the United States. We're going back to our suppliers and we're asking for this. And they're saying, hey, you know what? You, the United States, you represent maybe less than 15 or less than 20% of our entire global exports, globally. And so, we can afford to lose your business and we won't really care too much about it because for us, it's about saving face and we're being penalized. And so why shouldn't we just do the counter tariff and penalize you or not really do these discounts in the way that you would like to have them be done? It's a push and it's a pull. And sometimes you can only push so much without being pulled the other way. And that's where you get caught in the crossfire and a company like a Walmart not being able to meet those kinds of demands and other businesses not being able to navigate the way that they would like to is going to be part of the collateral damage of doing this kind of an activity.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Kevin and Norm here with a quick word from one of our sponsors, 8Fig. Let me tell you about a platform that's changing the game for Amazon sellers. That's right, it's called 8Fig. On average, sellers working with 8Fig grow up to 400% in less than a year.
8Fig offers both funding and free tools for e-commerce growth and cash flow management. And here's how it works.
8Fig provides flexible, data-driven funding tailored to your exact needs. They can fund anywhere from up to $50,000 all the way up to $10 million.
8Fig gives you free tools to forecast demand, manage inventory, and analyze cash flow.
Visit 8fig.co, that's 8fig.co, to learn more or check the link in the show notes below.
Just mention Marketing Misfits and get 25% off your cost.
That's 8fig.co, 8fig.co. See you on the other side.
Yeah, we saw that we were hoping that some of our clients were going to change, and some of them were already going to Canada for cosmetics and into Mexico. So a couple of years ago, we put a real push on seeing what we could do in Mexico. Well, in Mexico, I found out something very quickly. It's not like doing business in China. And they were really, at least the factories that we were talking to, they weren't set up to really produce the way we were expecting it. In Canada, I mean, it's fine. They've got that atmosphere. They know what you're looking for, but now you're going to get, both of them are going to be hit with tariffs. And even in the States, we talked about this. As a manufacturer in the States, and I come from a manufacturing background, my family was in manufacturing. It's who wants 500 units? Who wants 1,500 units? Manufacturers in the States, unless you're with supplements or something like that, that are already set up for private labels, really don't seem to want business. And that's a problem. So it's educating the manufacturing sector to see even if they want these orders. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if we really are trying to move towards becoming more of a manufacturing nation again, which, has not been that case for 50 years or more, yeah, we're going to have to basically be willing to do things that we wouldn't wanted to previously do. We're going to have to be able to reduce the cost of the goods in a way that still makes businesses competitive, because for several decades, they essentially have been selling at a certain price point. So you can't be selling a $20 shirt at Walmart and all of a sudden have to sell it for $50. Mm-hmm. Everyday Americans may not be able to afford it. Well, that's where I think the role of government can step in, and all of these additional dollars that are being recouped or so on via this tariff process, maybe that's then allocated as subsidies to these businesses who can then be able to reduce their costs to keep the cost of that shirt still at $20 and not have these businesses, get hurt too badly because they still have to pay their employees, not according to salaries in Asia, but according to salaries in the United States. So, it's a thing where you basically are going to have the pendulum swing both ways. And if the government is going to, let's say, take in additional funds and so on through this tariff mechanism, they need to take those funds and reallocate them back into the US-based economy that may be trying to work towards manufacturing. But more importantly than anything else, which is what you said before when it came to these nearshoring opportunities in Canada and Mexico, is with any manufacturing equation, you're going to need to look at those 5 key factors that I talk a lot about, which is basically going to be the access to the materials. Can you get it? The output from the actual equation in the nation you're trying to manufacture within, whether it's Mexico, Canada, United States. The resources. Do you have educated people who know how to be specialists in doing that kind of production? Do you have the technology, not just for today, but also for the future? And then finally, how does the cost structure look when you facilitate it across those various elements?
Wasn't that what's happening in Mexico, where right across the border from Texas, you have these Chinese companies coming in? This may change with all this, and they're building these like little miniature. There's some of these in Italy, there's some in Vietnam, but they're doing one in Mexico where it's like, I don't know, it's a huge district of just nothing but Chinese factories, and they're bringing in Chinese engineers and Chinese system operators, and they're basically trying to set up to cover 3 of those 5 that you just mentioned, but they still have the problem of raw materials have to come still mostly out of China,
Right.
And they still have some of the other issues there. So they're trying to counter that, in not just in Mexico, but they're doing it in Vietnam, they're doing it in other places too.
Yes.
So are you seeing that's not really working, or is that going to get turned on its head with all this tariff stuff too?
Well, it's so funny because, I mean, that was one of the big misnomers that a lot of people didn't understand about a year ago, where everyone was like, nearshoring, let's do it in Canada, let's do it in Mexico, let's not do it in China. And to your point, I actually wrote an article about this, that the vast majority of those nearshoring opportunities were via foreign direct investment. So you're buying from the Chinese, just not in China, the Chinese in Mexico, the Chinese in Canada, the Chinese in the United States even.
The Chinese in Italy. I mean, you remember back when COVID happened 5 years ago, Italy had one of the worst situations with COVID right at the beginning. Remember, there's disasters over there.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize that's because of the Chinese. Because in Italy, there's a whole area, I forget the name of it, it's a huge industrial area where everything is Chinese factories. So this made in Italy, and you have this idea in your head this is made by some Italian craftsman, is actually a Chinese factory. And those factories, there's a lot of traffic between Wuhan and that's what spread it.
The transmission happened via their employees going back and forth. Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I mean, to your point, yes, where you have some little bottlenecks could be with potentially the materials with some industries and some products. And that obviously then creates the increase in cost because you have to pay those transit fees to get them from those nations where the materials are to where they need to get to. And that can sort of manipulate the equation a bit or make it maybe not as feasible as it would have been if it would have originated in Asia entirely. But they were at least better scenarios. And the idea was that the offset would come with not having the tariffs, especially if it was between, let's say, Mexico and the United States. So the offset to the increased cost of the transit of the materials would be via the fact that there wouldn't be tariffs between Mexico and the United States. So it would kind of cover the cost of the transit fees. But now that we've got, we're at sort of a trade war with our neighbors here, with Mexico and with Canada and China. We're kind of closing off a lot of doors. And I wonder, whether that opens up the doors to South America, whether that opens up the doors to Africa. These are nations that have access to a lot of workforce.
But Indonesia.
And India.
Indonesia,
sure. I mean, India is a really good option, to be honest with you, because they have a large workforce, and they have a lot of technology there too. They've been ahead in tech for a while now too, which is great. The quality control still needs some work, and it just could open up some new foreign markets, which is great. Maybe some new ally nations with the United States, which could be good. But I do struggle with this, made in America concept. And I just don't really know, if we'll see that ever swing back in a way similar to what we used to have in the United States, 40s, 30s, when we were a manufacturing nation, when we made things.
Well, wouldn't it be the immigrants probably that would be working in a lot of these factories because they're willing to work to make this model work? Wouldn't it have to be, in a lot of cases, the uneducated or the immigrants, because they're the ones that are willing to work for the lower fees that can make the economics work?
Well, there's that idea, or what I was saying previously, which is that the government would step in and would subsidize.
Mm-hmm.
So
does that work like in Argentina? Argentina, that's the kind of their model because they have trouble collecting sales tax. Their version of the IRS has trouble. A lot of third world countries like Colombia, a lot of them. So what they do is they tax it coming in. So like there's like an 80% tariff or something on almost everything that goes into Argentina, especially in electronics. And so that's where the government is making their money. And so that raises the cost of everything. That's why a lot of the people from South America, when they come to the U.S., they're taking back TVs and computers and Levi jeans and everything else because they're just tariff the heck out over there. So does that model work though too, where like you're saying, where they give some of that back to subsidize?
Well, the way I see it when I talk about subsidizing is I mean that in order to make, let's say, not the less educated or only just immigrant population be those workers and so forth, that the United States may invest in creating manufacturing hubs and manufacturing, districts and industry areas, and maybe giving training to people who want to go into the realm of manufacturing. I mean, it's interesting, but right now, one of the hottest majors that you can do in college today is supply chain management, and productions operations management. So the swing is happening in theory and in education and ideology, but not so much in practice yet. So I just wonder if there will come this time where maybe the investments will be made in the country to actually be able to build more factories and more opportunities. The issue comes with things like regulation around certain things like EPA regulations and FDA and other things of that nature, which are supposed to be accounted for appropriately any corner of the world, especially if they're goods that are being imported into our country. But, we always want to look at kind of the grass is greener on our side of the fence. And so are we going to want to pollute our own skies in particular ways? Can we get things done with alternative energies and opportunities? Is the technology there enough? So even if we had the money and the technology and the resources, would we say, hey, let's start like turning these factories on, these ovens on, producing smoke and things of that nature that, may create additional pollutant environments in our nation? That's another conversation that has to come out of this that maybe isn't being talked about as well.
What's up, everybody? Your good old buddies Norm and Kevin here. And I've got an Amazon creative team that I want to introduce you to.
That's right, Kevin. It's called the House of AMZ, and it's the leading provider in combining marketing and branding with laser focus on Amazon.
Hey, Norm, they do a lot of really cool stuff if you haven't seen what they do, like full listing graphics, premium A+ content, storefront design, branding, photography, renderings, packaging design, and a whole lot of other stuff that Amazon sellers need.
Yeah, and guess what? They have 9 years active in this space. So you can skip the guesswork, trust the experts. There's no fees, there's no retainers. You pay per project.
So if you want to take your product to the next level, check out House of AMZ. That's houseofamz.com. House of AMZ.
If you take a look at what's happening with manufacturing right now, I grew up in a manufacturing environment. And yeah, it was lower wages, but I don't see that. What I see is if people are coming in and they're rebuilding. The government, like you said, might subsidize. You get the automation, which is going to help with the factories. And who do you have run? It's not an unsophisticated person, an uneducated person. It's somebody that's getting the big bucks to make sure that the floor is running and keeping the product line going. And everything from, it was a nightmare every time my dad asked me to do inventory. Well, now, your bill of material and your inventory is so easy based on automation. Absolutely. And it's a different world than the old belts going. And
absolutely.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say, like, I know this guy, I know this factory. It no longer exists, unfortunately. But they were one of the big factories over in China that were making shoes for Adidas, New Balance, like a bunch of them. They came over here and they automated the process. So this goes back to early 2000s, maybe late 1998-ish, maybe. They automated the complete process from making the last to completing the shoe with a human not touching it. But at that time, it cost 10 cents more. And they shut the plant down. The government shut the plant down in Florida. And, I wish I could get some information about this company. I don't know if they'll allow me to talk about it, but it was a completely, and I'm from that. That was what my dad was into, was the shoe industry. And to see and by the way, not only did they have these shoes that they could do automatically, they had these scanners that, if you needed a pair of shoes, high-end shoes, you could scan your foot at any airport lounge. Mm-hmm. And it would come up with all these leathers. You wouldn't even have to go to the store, it'd just be delivered. So I just wanted to throw that in there. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the reality of what you said. The industry is changing in a way that maybe manufacturing will be exciting and it'll be a high-paying job in the United States, and it'll be based upon AI and technology and right sizing of boxes and fully autonomous vehicles and fully autonomous warehousing, and people that are smart with a college education and know how to push the right buttons and get analysis out of the computers and blockchain enabled inventory and all this kind of stuff that essentially ends up being almost a job for more engineers than just guys with a big wrench that are just kind of smacking a belt when it isn't really working right, the way you said. So I mean, I can see that, and the educational landscape is changing around that, where I said more and more majors are and master's degrees are coming together in almost every major university around the realm of supply chain. I mean, I've been lecturing a little bit. I did a lecture at Harvard. I'm supposed to do something at MIT around my book that you mentioned before, Supply Chain Ups and Downs. There are young, very talented minds that want to know how to kind of capitalize on the manufacturing and supply chain industry today. And, it's interesting.
We have a friend, Perry Belcher, and Kevin, you're probably better to tell this story, but he goes out there. And my dad always told me to do the jobs, find the jobs that nobody else wants to do. And that'll make the money. But Kevin, if you want to talk about like what Perry does, he goes out and finds like the pool table story. There's a variety of different stories that even in local, like in local environments where you can really pull off what we're talking about today.
Yeah, he moved from Vegas to Austin. One of the main reasons he moved back to Austin is because of the opportunities in Texas, where you have Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas all within a geographical 3 hours of each other. Versus Vegas is like Vegas, and then it's 5 hours to Reno, and then 5 hours to California. It's not as close. And where he's looking at is two things. One is print on demand, so in manufacturing, and that hasn't taken off as quick as a lot of people thought it might 20 years ago. I mean, you still got the tinkerers and the people doing it, but on a mass scale, it really hasn't taken off as fast. But with AI and with some of what's coming, and they're building houses, manufacturing houses in Austin completely with 3D printing, big houses. And so I think you're going to see a shift there. And AI, we'll talk about this in a minute, is going to make a major impact in not only forecasting, but supply chain management and everything else on getting products to market quicker. But so that's one thing, is he's looking at he's big on print on demand. And right now it's still a lot of the smaller trinkety things, but it's going to be where you can do some pretty sophisticated stuff if it keeps evolving. But he's also looking at local, like where the opportunity is not in the glamorous stuff that everybody's doing on e-commerce, and it's in the jobs that nobody wants that are aging out. It's I think it's Facebook, or not. No, it's people that repair telephone lines or whatever. They're retiring, and no one's going into that field anymore. So the 65-year-old guy retires from repairing AT&T phone lines and electrical boxes, and the new 25-year-old has no clue what he's doing. So now the technology's coming where they're wearing Ray-Ban glasses, and they can look at the box, and the guy can sit down on his lazy chair that's retired and make a little extra money drinking his beer and saying, no, hit the yellow cord, not the green cord. So Perry's doing that, where he's actually going with jobs that don't require manufacturing, and saying there's a massive opportunity with that, like setting up a pool table. He gives a story where he took a pool, he's moving his pool table from Vegas, and it cost him $300 or whatever to put it on the truck to move the pool table to Vegas. When he gets to Austin, he needs to take it up a couple flights of stairs and put it all back together. And he called some people to do it. It was like $1,800. He's like, you got to be out of your mind. And the first available opening was 6 weeks from now, for someone to come by and do it. He's like, this is ridiculous. 6 months from now, $1,800. How many people need pool tables put back together or big things moved upstairs? So he looked into it and discovered, like, holy cow, all I need to do is buy a fleet of trucks that have all these mechanical things inside and these special little lifts or whatever that will walk up a staircase. And I can do a huge business by focusing on Austin, do all the marketing. I know how to outmarket everybody else local, and I'll conquer Austin, I'll conquer San Antonio, I'll conquer Houston, I'll conquer Dallas. And I have this whole massive empire right around me. So that's what Norm is talking about, where there's a lot of opportunities going that direction, that still require, when in a world of AI, it still requires that human touch versus let's automate everything and just manufacture the heck out of everything.
And to be clear, Kareem, we're talking Kevin King money.
Kevin King, that's like
Kevin King money.
King money. Yeah, King money.
Talking King money. I get it. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And I think the key to anything as it relates to technology is, as we always talk about and think about, is to not necessarily replace humans, but find a better use for humans. And this idea of computers and humans working in tandem with each other rather than just full replacement. Why? Not just because of the fact that there are certain efficiencies or creativities or other things that can be garnered from that, but at the same time, there are unique opportunities when you introduce humans and human perspective into a very mechanized process, where you're able to see things that happen by accident and by mistake, but in the end up creating improvements that no one would have ever thought of. Because if we think about it, computers and mechanization, for the most part, no matter how much we develop AI and generative AI, I mean, it's still a bit binary, right? There's still some feeders and there's some inputs and there's some outputs. And yeah, it's going to look at reference tables and databases to create particular algorithms that are going to make some level of a judgment or some level of a concept as to an extrapolation of data. But what if that set of data doesn't even exist yet, because Mozart hasn't been born yet, or Galileo, or whoever, and that could be an additional source of inspiration or ideation or otherwise. So we have to continue to work through this idea that hopefully through the technology and the mechanization, it will create more jobs and different kinds of jobs and better paying jobs with higher levels of education and so forth, and that we're not regressing, but rather we're progressing in a way.
I think that's a big fear, is a lot of people, especially in the media, that they're just worried about AI and manufacturing. You're going to AI and automation is just going to take jobs away. But it's going to be a shift, and it's going to be a little painful transition. But like you said, finding a better use for these humans and retraining them, perhaps the ones that can be retrained. Some of them may be difficult to do that. But and getting them into something else is the way to go. I mean, it happened at the Industrial Revolution. It's happened many times in history where things completely changed. And, we didn't have this 401k, go to work a 40-hour week office culture 100 years ago. That didn't exist.
Absolutely. I mean, if we weren't willing to embrace change, we'd still be on horse and buggy. We wouldn't have the automobile. We wouldn't have gotten in an airplane and got up in the sky or taken a space shuttle to the moon or Mars or wherever we're going to. I mean, we have to be willing to evolve and change in this way. And human beings are going to, find their own and new place in this world as we develop and become more and more innovative.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Levanta. Hey, Kevin, tell us a little bit about it.
That's right, Amazon sellers. Do you want to skyrocket your sales and boost your organic rankings? Meet Levanta, Norm and I's secret weapon for driving high-quality external traffic straight to our Amazon storefronts using affiliate marketing. That's right. It's achieved through direct partnerships with leading media outlets like CNN, Wirecutter, and BuzzFeed, just to name a few, as well as top affiliates, influencers, bloggers, and media buyers, all in Levanta's marketplace, which is home to over 5,000 different creators that you get to choose from.
So are you ready to elevate your business? Visit get.levanta.io/misfits. That's get.levanta, LEVANTA.io/misfits, and book a call, and you'll get up to 20% off Levanta's Gold Plan today. That's get.levanta.io/misfits. If you take a look at those stagecoaches and wooden buggies, the ones that didn't adapt, you don't even know their names. But people like the Dodge brothers went ahead and said, hey, something's going on here. We got to check out this new thing. And, Dodge was created. They kept going. So I think there's so much opportunity here. Even like one of the things that you were saying earlier on, materials. So I told you about this on the podcast. A friend of mine was looking at a job. He was innovating a product for somebody, and they were using wood, and they were manually putting it together over in China. Well, he came over and he said, well, maybe we can find some automation where the company will do everything like just robotically, automated flow. Did that, more precise, better product. But then he came back and he said, well, maybe we change the material and we go to resin. Mm-hmm. And that cheaper, like it was even 30% less. And then he even looked at aluminum. So between aluminum and resin, the problem was solved. Better product, way cheaper. In fact, it came down from the original price by 70% at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. And that's cost engineering, right? That's part of the process of supply chain management. And that's why you may need people that will, have a level of education or knowledge around materials or around engineering and structures and components and things like load bearing and engineering related concepts that are going to be able to step in and say resin will be better because it's lighter and it costs less, and we can control it in a way, and we can mold it and shift it and do different things that we just can't do with wood. But you need someone who has that intellect to be able to go to that place. And I think that that's really where manufacturing is going to go, because we can think about those things instead of just making sure that widgets are coming out okay. We can say, hey, we can take for granted the fact that widgets are going to come out okay because we've got the machinery that does that part. But who's sitting back and saying, how do we make our business better? How do we make our business more efficient? How do we make it, how do we come up with the next big thing? Well, you need people that have the bandwidth to be able to do that. And the reason why they have the bandwidth is because they're not swinging a sledgehammer anymore. They're thinking about things. And then the machines are swinging the sledgehammers, right?
How's globalization and where do you see globalization going? I mean, 50, 60 years ago, most countries were making their own stuff. The United States, in the 40s, 50s, we were big industrial. country and making our stuff. And you see China come around in like the 80s where they said, hey, why don't we become the world's factory? Let's double down. Let's build all this stuff and build all this infrastructure and build all these systems to where we can be the world's factory. And now that with the tariffs and everything, you have other countries trying to step in, but they just can't do it the same. Like we talked about Mexico, the problems there, like Norm was talking about. And then you have Vietnam and Indonesia and Turkey and some of these others are like raising their hand, like, we'll do it. But the amount of money and the time that China and effort put into it to become that grease those wheels so it's so efficient and so good. I don't know that anybody's going to be able to really quickly replicate that right now, even with AI and machinery. So where do you think this is going? Is it going to become more everybody like protect their own ass, and like, or is it going to be where everything shifts, or do you think it's just going to normalize out?
I think that technology has made the world smaller than ever before, and communication has never been at a higher level. Between translation softwares, the ability to video conference, the ability to really get on an airplane and go anywhere super quick if you need to, and with this in mind, that provides opportunities that exist globally. And if we don't look at the most efficient places in the world to make certain products, then from an economic standpoint, we are creating an inefficient equation, right? And this is really where I think it becomes quite interesting because, why did China become the world's factory? Well, they did a significant amount of investing, but beyond that, we also sent them a significant amount of our business opportunity, intellectual capital, and so on and so forth. There was a lot of like sharing that got China to then be where it got to be through time. It was not like just one day all of a sudden China became the world's factory. It was on the backs of great ideas, great business capabilities, mergers and acquisitions that took place, development, that happened as kind of joint efforts. Global joint efforts where it wasn't just the United States, but other parts of the world that said, hey, we're pointing our direction here. And I think that as long as we have an insular way of thinking where we only try to do everything ourselves, we will always be at a disadvantage from the opportunities that may exist or come about by using the world as an opportunity.
By not doing it, by depending on someone else, though, aren't you putting your own country and your own nation at risk to some degree? I mean, look at the U.S. with oil. We have the largest oil reserves in the entire world, not Saudi Arabia, not Venezuela, not all these others that are always in the news and OPEC. We do. We choose to not use it, to save it for a rainy day in case something happens. We're not going to be dependent on someone else. So is the same thing happening with logistics and manufacturing where there's any kind of fear there, or most people are just like, no, just status quo, let's just keep going and it'll work itself out?
I mean, I think that there are certain industries that have to be hands off for reasons of national security. I think that there are definite areas where we just have to make the products here because of the fact that we can't be overly reliant upon a foreign nation to produce widgets that we need for our military aircraft or whatever it may be.
NVIDIA chips, NVIDIA advanced chips or whatever, something like that.
Correct. I think that there has to be sort of like hands-off industries. And then outside of that, everything else that's more of a commoditized product, it's a matter of it potentially being more expensive or lesser quality or otherwise by shifting from one nation to another nation. And that unfortunately comes at the detriment of the consumerism of the world, right? And in this case, American consumers. But, I do believe, as you said, that we need to protect ourselves in particular industries where we can't have a reliance upon another nation. And that I firmly believe in, because that's just matters of national security.
What about the Coca-Cola model where it was invented in the US, in Atlanta, I think, and then they manufacture in the US. Instead of shipping it from the US all over the world. They set up manufacturing plants and like little licenses all over the world. Couldn't that happen in manufacturing logistics where the Chinese say, hey, we got the systems, we know how to do this. That's what they're trying to do, I guess, in Mexico. But could that be a model where they pop little things like Coca-Cola does all over the world? So you don't have to ship and you don't have all these complicated logistical things?
Yes.
Or is that something that
yes.
these companies are not really paying attention to or looking at because it's too cost prohibitive or something?
Well, no, I mean, I do think that is, I do think that is an opportunity where basically the Chinese, let's say, can invest or export their manufacturing know-how to other parts of the world and be able to set up factories and be able to build out opportunities. I mean, I look at there was a movie in the 80s that you may remember, which was called Gung Ho. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Gung Ho.
Okay, so like in that movie, what was that? That was the Japanese basically exporting their manufacturing know-how, saying like, we're going to set up in, rural America or Midwest or whatever, and we're going to try to teach them sort of the Keiretsu way of doing business and so on and so forth. And, it was this East meets West sort of, culture clash. One's bowing, the other one's giving him a Bud Light. It's this whole like funny interplay. But the reality of it is in the end, the idea was that here were some great automobiles coming off of this machine plant that was this mixture of cultural combination and ideological, combination. And that's really where I guess the best opportunities come about. It's through collaborative opportunities. And that's what I would hope. But I don't know how welcoming the United States is going to be in the future to these ideas. And that's a shame because what is the United States? The United States is supposed to be this melting pot, right? Everybody come from anywhere in the world and you're able to really have opportunities grow and develop. But I don't really know what the future is going to look like with regards to the openness of our borders to those opportunities. I would hope that would not so much be the case. The environment right now is a little bit anti, and I think maybe swinging a little too far. But, it's funny. I grew up in the D.C. area, and because of that, I'm the most not political person ever. Because when you grow up in an environment like that and you just see sort of like, hey, that guy's in there for 4 years, and basically by the time he really kind of gets going, 2 or 3 of the 4 years are already done, and then he inherits the previous president's agenda, and how much do you really get done? And then you got, this whole kind of slow bureaucratic system to even get rules passed. And, it's this whole thing of just kind of like passing the baton. If you're like a 2-term president, consecutive 2-term president, maybe you get some things done because you got enough runway to be able to get something done. So, but I just don't really know. I mean, the sentiment in America these days, I really hope will swing back to an idea of global citizenship, not just insular thinking, and that we will look to make great opportunities in our country and in these industries and manufacturing and so on. But to just kind of cut out the rest of the world to that process, I think will only do us more harm.
I've offered to bring donuts and Tim Hortons coffee when I come to the United States, but
I told you we don't need it. Tim Hortons is opening in Austin, so
it's not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's true. Tim Hortons is pretty good though. I mean, I'll still go with Dunkin'. Or if you really want to get into globalization of business, go and see the donut shops in California. And there's a great movie that I saw. It was on the plane called like The Donut King or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That guy.
That guy
in Laos or somewhere like that.
Correct. But what was interesting is that like 70% of the donut shops in California, these creative, unique donut shops were all from that like community in that country of the innovation. And that's a perfect example of the melting pot. Like, I mean, look at that. Like the donut culture exploded because foreigner came in and just kind of took it to another level. And we have so many stories like that. So, we're going to close ourselves off for the rest of the world and opportunities to develop. I don't know. I think it's to a disadvantage.
So what's happening in the world of logistics right now? I mean, you guys, that's one of the things that you guys are specialists in. What do you see happening there logistics wise? Because the whole, like you said earlier, basically you can get anything from anywhere in a day. I can have something from Shenzhen here, FedEx the next day, or things can be moved to the most rural places, overnight. You look at Amazon, who actually just recently, everything was about fast delivery. Get it as fast as possible. Get to the person in 2 hours if you can, or if not, 4 hours. If not, okay, first thing tomorrow morning. You want it at 4 a.m., click the little button. If you live in a big city, we'll deliver it between 4 and 7 a.m. like they do in Austin, if you want that. They just backed off of that. And they just are now, the new head of that department said, no, we're not going to be so putting our number one priority on how fast you get it. Now we need to make sure we actually make some money on this and look at the numbers. What do you see happening in logistics? You see UPS downsizing, you see FedEx, you see all these things happening there. What's going on logistics wise in the US and worldwide that's
Well,
paying attention to?
I mean, the positive side of it is that the rates are down. That's a good thing. I'm talking about for sea transport, and that's in that's in reference to the shipping and logistics partners looking to offset these increases in tariffs and anticipating a decrease in business. So because of it, the shipping and logistics companies have really started reducing their costs. So, what was formerly during the pandemic a container rate of $20,000 or $25,000 at its hyper inflated levels, down to then, let's say, locking in around $7,000 to $8,000, now is back down to those like $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000 levels, which were like pre-pandemic levels by 2 or 3 years previous, in contradiction to the increases in tariffs. So we're seeing
some of that's happening, though, like you said, though, to get the cost down. Like the port of, was it Long Beach or LA? One of those is doing a lot of automation, where they're actually taking the guys that were moving the containers and having to drive the big forklift things or whatever out. And then other ports are fighting that. So no, that's going to eliminate jobs. Back to that thing we talked about earlier, people don't want the change.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a small part of it, and that could be a part in the future as far as like efficiency. So then cost structures come down. But I think really what we're dealing with here is that there's increased technology that's looking at more efficient routing of shipping and vessels on the water, avoidance of storms, avoidance of heavily trafficked routes and things of that nature too, that are reducing the amount of fuel that's being used. As well, more and more vessels are going to start moving towards more of the renewable fuels and more sustainable fuels, and maybe some alternative energy sources that will come online that are starting to move towards. Remember that in the COP28 conference that was in Dubai, a year ago, it was stated by the top shipping and logistics companies, Maersk and Dwell and all these large-scale groups, that by 2050 they wanted to be carbon neutral, and that they really wanted to move toward, because shipping and logistics represented the 7th leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. And we're not slowing down with the amount of things that we sort of buy. So, I mean, there's a lot of innovation that's happening in the realm of shipping and logistics with regards to technology, with regards to traceability, visibility, reduction of carbon footprints, and reducing of costs. And I think that it can't come at a better time, quite honestly, when other things are increasing in cost, to basically have some levels of offset to allow businesses to still continue to do business.
Are you looking to quickly boost new Amazon product launches or scale up existing listings to reach first page positioning? The influencer platform Stack Influence can help.
That's right. Stack Influence pushes high volume external traffic, sales straight to Amazon listings using micro influencers that you only have to pay with your products.
They've helped up-and-coming brands like Magic Spoon compete with Cheerios for top category positioning, while also helping Fortune 500 brands like Unilever launch their new products.
Right now is one of the best times to get started with Stack Influence. You can sign up at stackinfluence.com or click the link in this video down in the description or notes below and mention Misfits, that's MISFITS, to get 10% off your first campaign. stackinfluence.com.
Well, I like to go down a different rabbit hole right now. And we started talking about it a little bit, and that's perception. I've talked to you about this on my podcast. You're your website oozes it, but it's just getting higher dollars, bigger dollars, just by packaging and making a better product. So everything that I see, I mean, there's simple things. It could be a watch, which you have. It could be the knives that you have. I mean, you've got a million different things on your site, but they're all high quality images, which you probably get, I'm guessing, 40 to 300% higher than the competitors.
Yes, I mean, it is absolutely essential to have a great presentation when it comes to your products and really your services as well. I mean, people buy with their eyes. You know, we are simple creatures here. And, you mentioned before, we do a lot in the spirits and beverage industry. Well, I mean, go into any liquor store today and see what people are gravitating towards. They're gravitating towards that really cool bottle with that really cool look. It tells a story without you even, knowing about it. They're not going towards that just common bottle with some random label slapped on the side of it. We are intrigued by the beauty of the presentation. And that's with regards to how we dress, the way we look, the way we present ourselves in the world, and products are a big part of that. So in a realm where manufacturing needs to almost justify particular price points to make sense for consumers, you have to create some level of way to stand apart. And the way that you do that is through effective marketing and through effective presentation, especially if brands are going to have to increase their prices. You've got tariffs. You're a high quality brand. You haven't really represented yourself maybe as appropriately as you should. And now you need to command a higher price point so you don't go out of business. Well, you better take some really good photos, have some great videos, maybe have some influencers involved, invest in yourself a bit more, not necessarily to dupe consumers, but maybe more so give a more realistic picture of what the real opportunity or the benefit is. And in doing so, then you'll be able to command those dollars, especially when you may have had to increase your prices. So rebranding, retooling, reperception, all of that stuff I think is super important as we continue to move forward in this environment of potentially higher cost structures. And we know about that because if you look at the PPI report and the CPI reports, you see the increases and the increased costs for producers of goods. And how it's impacting consumer spending. So we need to really create those offsets wherever we can.
I had a person talk to me the other day, a brand that approached me, and they were talking about a commodity, Dead Sea salt. Okay. And they said, we're having a problem. We want to do this. It fits in with our brand, but the typical price on Amazon is $10. We want to sell it for $20. And I looking at it going, all right, well, why don't you? And the perception that they had is, well, we have to go out like the others, package the same, the same photography, the same everything. And I'm going, if you do it that way, you're already set up for failure. You have to come out and have that perceived value. One of the things I told them was, look, I can show you on Amazon products that can have a much higher price point. They've priced themselves out of the ball game because they don't think that they have that perception, or they don't want to take the chance, or they're a new seller. If you think that way, don't get into it. You have to just spend a little extra, get the marketing around it, drive some traffic to it, and you'll always notice on Amazon, there are 3 pricing tiers, main pricing tiers. And if you want to do the product cannibalization, sure, go for it. The average, and then the top tier. It's whatever you want to choose, but just make sure that your product looks the part. If you don't do that and you have a high price, then you're just going to get 1 or 2 star reviews.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the difference between being a leader or being a follower in the space. And then those folks, we're going to have to basically make that conscious decision to say, we're going to spend an extra $1 or $2 in the packaging, put it in some gold foil or make it beautiful, or throw some lavender in there with the salt. And when we do that, we're basically going to be able to get it for an extra $8 of profitability because we invested $2 more in a place where others would not. And now we're not playing in that sandbox with everybody else, but we've created our own little territory, our own little sandbox. And that comes back down to perception and creativity and innovation, especially in a time where people may be struggling to pull out their wallets. You got to make them, you have to create FOMO. You have to create a fear of missing out. And that can really save a business, save a company.
I agree. So that's where I've been messing up, Norm. To get you to come to things, I need to actually change the way I have the little show models doing things. Instead of being in a muumuu and some sweats, I need to have them. I need to change the packaging and have them put some makeup on, dress up in a little mini skirts and some high heels and a little low cut top, and that's all in the packaging. Same thing, just all in the packaging, right? And that'll get you to buy in and come to more of my events. I got it.
Who has
I just learned the trick. I just
hold it. Who has gone to almost 100% of your event? Who has? Your buddy. Look at me. Look at me. Who's your buddy, Kev?
Who's my buddy? Who do I swap swords with?
Yeah.
I want to talk to your marketing people, Kevin, to know. I want to talk to your marketing people to know how they could allow models to walk around in muumuus.
You got to see the models. He's got to pay more.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you have another area I want to talk about. You were the number one supplier for Alibaba. You were the first in North America, correct?
Correct. First US-based verified supplier of Alibaba. And now, which is wonderful, they have requested that I be an ambassador of Alibaba, which is an even bigger sort of, it's just a nice honor that they're asking me to do that.
You get a muumuu with that?
Yeah, maybe. Get you all the muumuus you need.
That's in a nice box, Norm, like we got it at the restaurant here in Austin.
Ah, yeah. Well, that's incredible. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Alibaba, people think of Alibaba as China, just going and getting a Me Too product. So what's your take on this? Why are they spending so much money now coming over to North America?
Well, the reality of it is that Alibaba is the world's largest B2B trading commerce platform. And it provides a place for buyers and sellers, over 90 million, I think it is, per day, to interact with each other in a global capacity on sourcing and being able to navigate global trade. And originally, Alibaba had a lot of challenges with this because they just didn't have the technology and the protocols in place. And it wasn't that Alibaba was bad, but there were a lot of bad actors on Alibaba. Groups that would come in and pose as factories, and they were really trading companies that were 5 levels removed. And, buyers had no recourse when and if things went wrong. And they've worked diligently to really build in their verification processes, their trade assurance policies. They've built logistical arms through their relationship with Alibaba Logistics and Xinjiao and some of these other large trade groups. They do warehousing now, picking, packing. And they've gotten extremely sophisticated. The idea here around U.S. verified suppliers was back to this concept we were talking about with Kevin before about nearshoring. So what really came about was that Alibaba said, you know what, we know we've got hundreds of thousands of suppliers from Asia, but what we really want to have is we really want to have groups from other parts of the world that know their market and have levels of comfort and trust with their populations from that region that want to work hand in hand and essentially be able to, produce products or goods or whatever else it may be. And so we have been obviously working in the United States. We've always been a US-based company for more than 20 years. And the vast majority of our clients are US-based clients that wanted to take advantage of the global economy. So we are a supplier of services and of goods as a collateral part of the process that's based in the United States. And so why not be listed on Alibaba to be able to be represented to any buyers who are looking to work with a US-based company that can help their ideas become reality, which is what we do. And that was the whole concept there. And we were the first in this program for the United States, and they've thus continued to develop more and more. There are manufacturers, there are all different kinds of groups, obviously. And they're building these other networks that are in Mexico and in Canada and in South America, Africa, different continents as well, to be able to service their local markets. So it's a way for Alibaba to take advantage of its platform and its technology on more localized ways that can then be able to produce better, high quality services, levels of more streamlined communications, operating with each other in your similar currencies, time zones, all of those kinds of things, but through the technology and the platform of Alibaba.
Alibaba's become much more than just a logistics company or a matching company, suppliers to people that want to make products, but they're big in the technology now. They got their own LLMs. They just launched what's it called, ASIO or ACO? That's a AI generated platform worldwide for sourcing. They're pretty big in a lot of areas beyond just what a lot of people listening to this may think is like, oh, that's just where I go to find products to sell. They really branched out and doubling down on that.
They absolutely have been, and all of these products and different kind of facets and ways that Alibaba can be used is part of some of the things that I'll be talking about in this ambassador role. This AI sourcing tool is one of those key new developments that they're working very hard to push. And then Alibaba has also been starting to get into things like the large scale trade conferences as well. So this year will be the third year for the Alibaba Co-Create event, which is in Las Vegas. I was there last year and the year before on the main stages, and I'll be there again this year. And it's a live streamed trade show that goes out to, I think, 100 million people. And it's a matter of education and exchanging of ideas. And it's a real hotbed of activity in the realm of supply chain and procurement that's becoming, a very, very hot event. So they're starting to do more and more of this to keep it not just tech and, nations apart, but really create those face-to-face interactive opportunities. So I think that's also kind of smart on their end as well. I mean, obviously, they're facing some levels of challenge today with the sort of things we're dealing with between the United States and China. But regardless, the vast majority of businesses that I work with that are based in the United States are still working with Asia, still working with China. They're figuring out ways to sort of handle this tariff question in so many different ways that we talked about before. And business is still getting done. So.
Hey, Kevin King and Norm Farrar here. If you've been enjoying this episode of Marketing Misfits, thanks for listening this far. Continue listening. We've got some more valuable stuff coming up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you subscribe to our channel because you don't want to miss a single episode of the Marketing Misfits. Have you subscribed yet, Norm?
Well, this is an old guy alert. Should I subscribe to my own podcast?
Yeah, but what if you forget to show up one time and it's just me on here? You're not going to know what I say.
I'll buy you a beard and you can sit in my chair too. And you can go back and forth with one another. Yikes! But that being said, don't forget to subscribe, share it. Oh, and if you really like this content, somewhere up there's a banner. Click on it and you'll go to another episode of the Marketing Misfits.
Make sure you don't miss a single episode because you don't want to be like Norm.
Oh. You're a misfit. We all know that. You have a partner that's a misfit. He's a shark misfit. Why don't we talk a little bit about who your partner is and how you got involved and, what he's doing to help you grow this company?
It's funny you said that because I was going to mention him as the misfit that I had in my mind.
Oh, that would be a great misfit.
Yeah, that's a misfit that I would definitely suggest consider as a misfit, which is Damon John. Damon John from Shark Tank and obviously the founder of Fubu. is a misfit in my mind because of the fact that, he was unwilling to let anyone tell him that he couldn't achieve or dream big. And he started that with his company, where Fubu, where he started his clothing line and had very little, and turned it into a multinational, multi-billion-dollar organization that really transformed some levels of fashion and trends for several decades. And then obviously went on and took a lot of that business acumen and got into books and got into keynote speaking and mentorship, and then obviously 16 seasons on Shark Tank, and being very recognizable in this industry. So, he has a program which is called CEO Access, and he takes on a CEO for a period of time, usually around 2 years, and works hand in hand with them to help them to grow and expand, build, further brand, and develop themselves. And so, I have engaged in this. I was chosen to be part of this program. And so we work together. And basically every month we get together and converse. We work on different projects together and deals. He obviously has a lot of deal flow that needs supply chain related assistance and so forth. And we're working, hand in hand to essentially be able to grow and develop the interest in the realm of supply chain, of which there is a significant amount. I mean, we are at a time right now where we need a relatable voice to supply chain. We need more and more visibility around this, and to be working hand in hand with him on this platform is something that I think is very special. He allows me to have a pretty large microphone or a megaphone to be able to broadcast good knowledge, which I'm putting out every single day, and content, and so forth. And so it's a really good relationship. It's early days, but it's going very, very well so far.
Very good. Well, you know what my last question is going to be? We ask this of every misfit that comes on, but do they know a misfit?
Well, you already took the wind out of my.
I did.
Well, I was absolutely going to suggest Damon John as a potential misfit, just simply because of the fact that, he was a person who didn't operate according to the status quo or the rules or otherwise. He said, I'm just going to go ahead and climb to the top of this mountaintop, no matter how hard it is. I'm going to kind of march to my own beat, drummer. And he does that. He does it every single day. And he's one of the most straight shooters that I've seen. He doesn't really care about popular opinion. He really just is very factual in the way he does his work and his business and his mentorship. And I think that that's very refreshing, and people really respect that a significant amount. So that would be my suggestion for you.
Oh, very good. That would be a big suggestion. So thank you so much. Now, where do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, for the global supply chain solutions, it would be at theatlasnetwork.com. That's theatlasnetwork.com. And for any of the kind of thought leadership side of things, or consulting, also in the realm of supply chain and otherwise, that would be at my website, which is kareemkari.com. And if anyone has an interest in the book you had mentioned, it's simply on Amazon or at supplychainupsanddowns.com, which is the name of the book.
All right. Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Kev, I guess we could have probably made this 2 or 3 podcasts, huh?
I'm sure we can. We could keep geeking out on this stuff with Kareem for quite some time. It's always cool to talk with people that are doing this kind of stuff. Thanks for coming on, Kareem.
Thank you so much for having me. And I get to Austin quite a bit. I was there maybe 3 or 4 times last year. Maybe we'll get together for a bourbon. One of my clients is still Austin, actually. So I make all the glass for those guys. And
awesome. I'm always up for a good bourbon.
Sounds good, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. I'm going to remove you, but don't go away.
Thank you, guys.
So, Norm, I always think when we talk about supply chain, how many people, especially in the United States and Canada, in North America, don't understand this world. and don't understand. His company is called Atlas, and they don't even know. And I just saw something on TikTok where people are like, names. Just yesterday, I was just scrolling around. It's like, name 7 countries that start with a P, and most people couldn't do it. And most people don't understand this world that we live in. They understand it through movies or through TV shows. But you and I have traveled. I mean, you've been to 60 some odd countries. I've been to 96. We understand and we get that there's cultural differences. Yeah, there's language differences, but technology is bringing us all closer. Like Kareem said, with the translation and all this, and there's much less barriers than there used to be now. And we're becoming one globalized planet. And if you're not realizing that and not taking advantage of that and not understanding that like he does and his company does, I think you're going to get left behind. And you're going to be playing with one hand behind your back, trying to compete in your business. Would you agree with that?
100%. Or if you're just going and just getting Me Too products and trying to sell them and not understanding how to make it different or better ways of shipping. There's so many things that you can do. When you're sourcing products nowadays, supply chain is so important.
It is, and it's the unglamorous thing. It's like you don't see people on YouTube, some guru like, hey, here's my Lambo, and I made all this money doing supply chain. They're on there, like talking about the sexy stuff, but it's the underbelly. It's like in football, American football. The games are won at the line of scrimmage. It's not with the glamorous positions necessarily of the wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, although they do matter. But they can't do what they can do if those linemen aren't doing what they're doing. And that's the unglamorous part, the part that nobody knows. And that's the same thing here when it comes to marketing and supply chain and manufacturing and packaging. That's where the money's at, and that's where the opportunity is, because there's a lot of people just not doing it right. And working with someone like Kareem and his company, if you just did a Kickstarter and you're like, where do I go? I'm sure he would be happy to help you and guide you to all the best places of where to do that. So that's what we like to do here on the Misfits is we don't just geek out on email and YouTube and stuff, but we talk about all the other important things as well, like supply chain.
Right. I'm just thinking about that scrimmage line and just pushing the heck out of you through the quarterback sneak. I would help you, Kev.
We would be doing, what's the Philadelphia where they do the little push
quarter. Yeah,
the push. You'd be signing up like, I want to do it.
Yep.
just don't bring your.
I would make sure that there was pain.
Don't stick your lightsaber up there.
All right, so let's close this out, shall we?
So Norm and I are here every Tuesday with another edition of the Marketing Misfits podcast. We also, by the way, Norm, did you know this? I have a surprise for you. You want a surprise?
Other than my lightsaber?
No, we have a newsletter coming soon for Marketing Misfits, a weekly newsletter that will take you behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and dive deep on some of the cool stuff that we talk about and have a few more cool marketing things that we don't have time to talk about on here. So look for that coming soon. And you can find that. Where do they find that? What's that website that we have?
It's called marketingmisfits.co.co.
That's right. Marketingmisfits.co. Marketingmisfits.co is where it's at. And you and I don't know when this is coming out. Maybe it's already come out, but you and I are doing a live podcast event here soon too. What?
Whoop, whoop.
I know. That's going to be a lot of fun over at. We're doing that in Vegas at Resorts World during a show. So that's going to be cool. So we'll have a recording of that episode for you guys coming out here soon as well. Where
that's going to be a lot of fun.
You don't want to miss it because you just see what Norm is wearing. He's wearing. He went and bought a special outfit. It's going to be pretty cool.
At least I'm going to be wearing an outfit, Kevin. Oh. All right, everybody. Until next Tuesday, we'll see you later.
Yeah, take care.